Hello, and welcome back to Practically Political. As always, it's great to have you. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. Let's get right to it. We've got a special guest today. We're so glad to have her, Miss Gabby Hoffman. Welcome to Practically Political.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Dave.
And so Gabby is our director at Independent Women's Forum of our Energy and Conservation Center, because as good conservatives, we do like to conserve the environment. And she is very well known throughout the industry also on pushing back against ESG and all of the wokeness with DEI taking over the energy industry. And we're finally seeing some relief on that. And we're going to talk about all things Green New Deal and the latest with energy. So Dave, do you want to ask the first question?
Sure. I guess, my first question is, do you believe in climate change, Gabby? Do you think that it's a threat, or what's your thought on that?
I think the climate changes naturally, and it's debatable whether or not it's catastrophic, because we see a lot of proponents kind of pushing the climate crisis narrative, not really abiding by decarbonization themselves. So until they fully abide by decarbonization in their personal lives, I think a lot of skepticism over whether or not we're in a crisis is to be debated. But I think, we just have to adapt to a changing climate, and we have. And I think even with a new administration, you'll see that kind of philosophy, even with them prioritizing energy abundance. But we're not really in a catastrophe, because the people who are calling for it don't seem to be acting like it. So until they change, I think we're okay for now. But I think that doesn't mean you can't care about the environment. I think where we're seeing this kind of shift, and we can go into this certainly more, but we're seeing this in moving away from a climate focus back to kind of a true conservation focus. And as Carrie alluded to, this is something I like to talk about because I am a conservationist through and through as a hunter and angler. I care very deeply about the environment, and I still think you can balance that with smart energy development. Doesn't mean you have an oil rig at every corner or a solar panel in every field. You have to be very practical and judicious about where you place projects, and you have to assess their trade-offs. But yeah, I think we can recognize that we have a changing climate. How do you mitigate it? Do you do it through top-down directives, or do you do it through innovation? And I think a lot of people are saying that innovation is the smart way to go.
Well, I guess yes. And first of all, look, I always give the benefit of the doubt. As I told Carrie, I hope that I'm wrong about Trump, though the way he started so far, I think I'm been unfortunately right. And I hope he improves the second term. But the environmental record during the Trump administration, was abysmal. We can get into that later. But I guess my question, which maybe I didn't hear you answer, there's always been two issues. Is the climate changing, and how much is human activity contributing to that change? So I think even my most ardent climate denier friends now acknowledge that the climate is changing, but they're hesitant to admit that human activity is contributing it. So do you believe that human activity is contributing to climate change, Gabriella?
I would say that of our competitors and adversaries, where they're unchecked powers and their regulations.
I'm asking, it's a simple yes or no question. Do you believe?
I answered. I said.
Okay.
I said the climate is changing naturally. Is it at a catastrophic
level? How much is human activity contributing? I don't recall you answering that. I'm sorry. Maybe I missed it.
It's being debated currently, and I
how
think
do you feel? Do you
that's
think
how I feel.
Human activity is affecting climate change.
If we're talking about natural disasters.
No, human activity is pumping CO2 into the atmosphere. It's, unregulated fracking where too much methane escapes, which is a far more potent greenhouse gas. That's what I'm asking you. You don't seem to be wanting to answer the question.
No, I'm going to answer your question, if I may. China and Russia and India tend to pollute a lot more than we do. So you have to ask them the question. The United States.
Yes. India, no.
That's debatable. I've seen different information about that. But we, as the United States, across both Democrat and Republican administrations, have done a lot to reduce emissions. I think a top-down approach does not effectively do that. I think a little bit of deregulation and ensuring that you have innovation at the forefront can unleash more of that. And to your point earlier, there was actually a lot of environmental improvement under the Trump administration in several ways. He funded Superfund cleanups. Even Politica, which was not very fond of his policies, gave him a concession and said he did that really well under his EPA the first time. He also permanently funded the Land and Water Conservation Fund, helped to reduce the national park maintenance backlog, and did a whole host of other measures too, which we could debate. But we can't just scrutinize ourselves. And I think we've done a great job. And even if we're causing catastrophic harm, we have done a lot in the last half century to improve our footprint, to make sure that technologies work great. We're not having people die as much working in the coal, oil, and gas industry, nuclear as well. A lot of safety measures have been taken into account. And as more and more people learn about the energy industry, work in the energy industry, who are also ardent conservationists who hunt and fish, even, those two interests can exist and coincide with one another. People do care about their surroundings. They're just very skeptical about the top-down approaches they've seen, especially from climate posturing and the policies of the previous administration. So you don't have to have this insistence of abiding by a climate catastrophe narrative to care about the environment. And that's the debate we're going to be having, and the policies we're going to see bear out under this administration.
Okay, I still haven't gotten a yes or no answer to my question. Is human activity contribute to climate change? Can you just say yes or no?
It's debatable. And again,
all right, never mind. All right, Carrie, go ahead.